The devastation and response. Elysium Prime gleamed like an azure jewel against the void of space. Over 30 million humans called this thriving colony home, among them Elena Chen, chief agricultural engineer for the Eastern Hemisphere. That morning, like every morning for the past 8 years, she kissed her husband Marcus goodbye before heading to the terraforming control center. "Still on for dinner at Bellini's tonight?" Marcus asked, his dark eyes crinkling at the corners. "Wouldn't miss it," Elena promised, brushing back a strand of her silver-streaked black hair. 20 years deserves a proper celebration. The morning air carried the scent of Turin pine mixed with the sweet aroma of native purple blooms. Elena breathed deeply as she walked the 3 kilometers to the center, admiring what humanity had accomplished in just 4 decades. What had once been a barren, rocky world now supported vast forests, sprawling cities, and endless fields of crops that fed not only Elysium's population, but exported surplus to 3 neighboring systems. At the control center, Elena reviewed the quarterly climate projections with her team. "The southern basin is stabilizing nicely," her assistant Raj noted, highlighting a region on the holographic display. "Precipitation levels are exactly where we want them." "Perfect," Elena nodded. "Let's run simulations for the northern expansion next. I think we're ready to begin atmospheric saturation there by next month." The first hint of trouble came shortly after midday. A security alert flashed across all screens, indicating unidentified vessels at the edge of the system. Elena wasn't immediately concerned. Ships arrived at Elysium regularly, though they typically identified themselves according to protocol. Within 20 minutes, however, the center's emergency system blared to life. "Unidentified vessels entering orbital trajectory," announced the colony-wide broadcast. "This is not a drill. All citizens, please proceed to designated emergency shelters." Elena tried calling Marcus at the university where he taught sinolinguistics, but the communications network was already overwhelmed. Grabbing her emergency kit, she joined colleagues hurrying outside, eyes drawn upward to the clear blue sky. That's when they saw them, angular silhouettes descending through the atmosphere, dozens at first, then hundreds. "Those aren't human ships," whispered Raj, his face pale. At 14:23 local time, the first Kryvax warship entered Elysium's atmosphere. By 14:25, the colony's minimal defensive grid was offline. Elysium Prime was a peaceful settlement, established for scientific research and agriculture, not as a military outpost. Its few defensive satellites were obliterated within minutes. Elena ran toward the university, pushing against crowds fleeing in the opposite direction. The ground shook with the first impacts. By 15 o'clock, New Damascus, the capital city just 12 kilometers away, was engulfed in flames. The shockwave knocked Elena to the ground, debris raining around her. When she regained consciousness, the sky had turned a sickly red. Smoke and dust choked the air. Disoriented, Elena staggered to her feet and continued toward the university, her eyes stinging, lungs burning with each breath. The university campus, when she finally reached it, was unrecognizable, buildings reduced to smoldering rubble. "Marcus," she called, voice raw. "Marcus." She searched frantically, pulling aside debris, helping others she found trapped or injured. A fellow faculty member recognized her, his face streaked with blood and soot. "Elena." He grasped her arm. Marcus led a group of students to the underground archives. "East Wing." He pointed toward a partially collapsed structure. The attacks continued throughout the afternoon. Elena found the entrance to the archives, blocked by fallen beams. She clawed at the debris until her fingers bled, stopping only when secondary explosions forced her to seek shelter. By nightfall, an eerie silence had fallen over Elysium Prime, punctuated only by distant explosions and the groaning of collapsing structures. The Kryvax ships hung in the darkening sky, their hulls reflecting the fires burning below. Captain Darius Wright of the civilian transport Horizon's Edge wasn't supposed to be anywhere near Elysium Prime. His ship was a mid-sized merchant vessel, hauling agricultural equipment from Earth to the outer colonies. With a crew of 15 and room for 30 passengers, the Horizon's Edge was neither large nor well-armed. "Captain, we need to get out of here," his first officer, Amara Okafor, urged as they witnessed the attack from the shadow of Elysium's smaller moon. Wright shook his head, his weathered face grim. "Not without trying to help. Against those warships, we're outgunned 1,000 to 1. We're not going to fight them, Amara. We're going to save who we can." Wright turned to his crew. "Prepare for emergency landing operations. We use the moon's shadow for cover. Approach from the night side. Land fast. Load survivors. And get out even faster." The Horizon's Edge broke protocol and common sense to attempt rescue. They landed at 3 different locations, taking damage from debris and turbulence. At each stop, the crew had just minutes to load survivors before Krivak's scout ships approached. The Lino was among those they found on the 3rd landing, still searching for a way into the archives. "My husband," she kept saying as crew members guided her aboard. "He's in the archives. I need to find him." "There's no time," a crewman told her, not unkindly. "We're the last ship. No one else is coming." In total, the Horizon's Edge rescued 127 people, all that remained from a colony of 30 million. As the ship jumped to FTL, Captain Wright watched through the viewscreen as Elysium Prime's atmosphere boiled away under continued bombardment. The once beautiful blue-green world turned red, then gray, then black. "Send the message to all human worlds," he told Amara, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Tell them everything." Amara's voice shook as she recorded the transmission. "This is the transport vessel Horizon's Edge. Elysium Prime has been destroyed by an alien force identifying as the Krivak's Collective. 30 million lives lost. We have 127 survivors. The attacking fleet remains in the system. This is not a drill. Prepare your defenses." The message spread from system to system faster than any ship could travel. Humanity had encountered other alien species before, had even fought territorial skirmishes, but nothing like this. Never genocide. In the medical bay of the Horizon's Edge, Elena sat motionless, staring at the wall. A doctor treated her physical injuries, but they were minor compared to what she had lost. "Did anyone from the university archives survive?" she asked, her voice hollow. "I'm sorry," the doctor said quietly. The destruction of Elysium Prime accomplished what centuries of political divisiveness had failed to do. It united humanity. The Terran Defense Alliance was formed within days, merging the military forces of Earth and all colonial governments. With it came Protocol Omega, the complete mobilization of humanity for war. As the Horizon's Edge limped toward Earth carrying its precious cargo of survivors and terrible news, humanity began to prepare. The Krivaks had made a critical miscalculation. They believed humans would surrender rather than face extinction. They were wrong. Admiral Sato inspected the massive shipyard extending throughout the asteroid belt of the Sol system. Where miners once extracted ore for civilian use, automated factories now constructed warships by the thousands. "Status report," he demanded. General Rivera stepped forward. "Production exceeds projections by 23%, Admiral. The new quantum manufacturing protocols are performing better than expected." "And the communications blackout?" "Total, sir. As far as the Krivaks know, we're still a scattered collection of peaceful colonies in shock." Sato nodded, satisfaction briefly replacing the grief that had become his constant companion since losing his daughter on Elysium. "Keep building. I want a ship for every soul we lost." The Ceres shipyard had once been the largest mining operation in the solar system. Now it was the primary hub of humanity's retribution. Admiral Sato walked along the observation deck, watching as robotic arms assembled warships piece by piece. The vessels resembled silver arrowheads, designed for speed and overwhelming firepower rather than comfort or sustainability. No one would live on these ships for long. They were built for one purpose only: war. 4 years had passed since the destruction of Elysium Prime. 4 years of secret preparation. The survivors had been hidden away on Earth, their existence known only to top military officials. To the rest of the galaxy, it appeared that humanity was still reeling, still grieving, perhaps preparing modest defenses while seeking diplomatic solutions. The Kryvax have sent another communication. General Rivera reported, following Sato along the deck. They claim the destruction of Elysium was a regrettable incident resulting from a misidentification of human intentions in their territory. They wish to establish formal diplomatic relations. Sato's hand tightened on the railing. Respond as usual. Tell them we are considering their offer and require more time for internal consultation. The strategy was simple but effective. Keep the Kryvax believing that humans were scared, disorganized, and eager to avoid another attack. All the while, build the largest fleet in human history. Sato entered the command center where a holographic display showed shipyards throughout the Sol system. Jupiter's moons, Saturn's rings, even distant Neptune's orbit, all had been converted to production facilities. And beyond the solar system, in 14 other star systems, the same work continued in absolute secrecy. Dr. Nakamura has arrived with the latest weapons test results, Rivera announced. Nakamura looked exhausted. Dark circles hung under her eyes, and her uniform was rumpled from too many hours of work without rest. But she smiled as she displayed her findings. The phase disruptors work, Admiral. In our tests, they penetrated Kryvax's whole material like it was tissue paper. This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. Analysis of fragments recovered from damaged Kryvax scout ships had revealed their armor technology. Now humans had a weapon that could defeat it. Begin installation on all ships immediately, Sato ordered. Later that day, Sato visited the memorial hall. Here, images of Elysium Prime covered the walls. 30 million faces looked out from the displays. Among them was his daughter Hannah, smiling with her husband and son on their farm. They had moved to Elysium for its clean air and open spaces. We're almost ready, Sato whispered to the images. Just a little longer. A young officer approached hesitantly. Admiral, the Council is ready for your update. The Terran Defense Council met in a secure facility buried deep beneath the old United Nations building in New York. Representatives from Earth and all surviving colonies gathered around a large table, many joining via encrypted holographic link. Admiral Sato, your report please, the Council Chair requested. Sato stood straight. Production is ahead of schedule. Currently, we have completed 583,000 warships. At current rates, we will reach our target of 700,000 within 5 months. Murmurs filled the room. Even those who had approved the plan were astounded by the numbers. And training? Asked a representative from Mars. All automated systems are performing at 99.3% efficiency. The AI Battle Coordination Network has passed all simulations. Human crews train daily in virtual environments identical to the ships being built. The cost is enormous, said the representative from Europa. Every resource diverted to the armada means less for our civilian population. We sacrifice comfort now so we may simply exist later. Sato quoted the slogan that had become ubiquitous across human space. Everyone understood the sacrifice was necessary. The Kryvax had demonstrated what happened to unprepared worlds. After the meeting, Sato returned to his Spartan quarters. Unlike the opulent dwellings of military leaders in earlier eras, his room was austere. A bed, a desk, a chair. On the desk sat a small plant, a cutting from a tree that had grown on Elysium. His communication device beeped with an urgent message from Dr. Nakamura. Admiral, we've detected unusual patterns in Kryvax communications. They're gathering a fleet near the border of our space. How many ships? Approximately 8,000. Sato almost smiled. Once, 8,000 ships would have seemed an overwhelming force. Now it was insignificant compared to what humanity had built in secret. Let them come, he said, but ensure our outward scans show nothing unusual. Let them think we're still helpless. The next morning, he visited the training center where pilots practiced in simulators. The pilots were young, most born after the fall of Elysium. They had grown up with stories of the destroyed colony. For them, the coming war was personal, even though they had lost no one directly. "Admiral on deck." Someone called, and they all stood at attention. "At ease," Sato said. "Show me what you've learned." He watched as they ran battle simulations, their ships moving in complex formations that would have been impossible without the new AI coordination systems. The Krivax relied on rigid tactics, attacking in predictable patterns. These pilots trained to be unpredictable, to strike from multiple angles simultaneously. "We'll be ready when you give the order, Admiral," the training officer assured him. Back at the Ceres shipyard, Sato stood before his newly completed flagship, the Remembrance, larger than the others. It contained the command center from which he would direct the entire fleet. "A ship for every soul lost." He repeated his earlier declaration. "And one more for me." General Rivera approached with a secure tablet. Final approval needed for the fleet dispersal plan. Sato reviewed the document. Ships would be hidden throughout human space, ready to converge on the Krivax homeworld at his command. The plan was audacious, relying on new jump drive technology that allowed for precise coordination of arrivals across vast distances. "Approved," he said, pressing his thumb to the scanner. "How much longer until we reach full strength?" 4 months, 3 days, Rivera replied. Sato nodded. "Then we wait 4 months and 4 days. And then we remember Elysium. The reckoning." 5 years and 6 months after the Elysium massacre, the Krivax diplomats arrived at the neutral station Arcturus, expecting to finally establish formal relations with what they presumed to be a thoroughly cowed humanity. Their delegation consisted of 3 towering figures, their exoskeletons gleaming with ceremonial markings denoting their high status within the collective. "We bring greetings from the Supreme Nexus," the lead diplomat announced through a translation device. "The Krivax Collective seeks peaceful coexistence with humanity following the unfortunate incident at your outpost." Across the table, the human delegation maintained carefully neutral expressions. They were politicians and diplomats selected for their ability to conceal their true thoughts, to play the role of a defeated species seeking only to avoid further misunderstandings. "Humanity appreciates the collective's desire for peaceful relations," replied Ambassador Cohen, her voice betraying no hint of the rage that burned within her. "We require assurances that no further incidents will occur while we discuss terms." Of course, the Krivax diplomat chittered, mandibles flexing in what its species considered a gesture of benevolence. "The Supreme Nexus has declared all human worlds under protection status. No collective vessel will approach without explicit invitation." What the Krivax delegation couldn't know, was that the meeting was being broadcast to every ship in the human armada, to every production facility, to every training center. Every word of their condescending diplomacy, every gesture of their presumed superiority, was fuel for humanity's resolve. As the diplomatic charade continued, Admiral Sato received the final production report aboard the Remembrance. General Rivera's holographic image appeared before him, her expression one of fierce pride. "It is done, Admiral. 700,000 ships, fully armed, crewed, and ready. The last phase disruptors were installed yesterday. Fleet distribution is complete." Sato allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. And the Krivax, still completely unaware. Their main battle fleet remains gathered near their homeworld Krivia Prime. Only diplomatic vessels and routine patrols elsewhere. They believe we're stalling for time to build basic planetary defenses. Very good. Initiate Operation Remembrance. Throughout human space, hidden shipyards began emptying as vessels moved into jump position. The massive fleet was divided into 700 battle groups, each comprising 1,000 ships. They would converge on Krivia Prime from all directions simultaneously, using the revolutionary jump coordination system developed specifically for this moment. The Remembrance departed the secret facility buried within Ceres, accompanied by the command group of 100 specialized vessels. As his flagship entered the void between worlds, Sato addressed the fleet. Men and women of the Terran Defense Force, today we remember. 5 years ago, the Kryvax Collective destroyed Elysium Prime, believing they could exterminate humanity with impunity. They believed we would cower, beg for mercy, or fragment into competing factions. They were wrong. Throughout the vast fleet, 700,000 crews listened in silent determination. We have built this armada not from a desire for conquest, but from necessity. The Kryvax have shown they cannot be reasoned with, cannot be trusted. They understand only power. Today, we will show them power beyond their comprehension. Sato paused, looking at the small plant on his command console, the descendant of Elysium's trees, now thriving aboard his ship. For Elysium, for Earth, for humanity. Jump. Across human space, 700,000 ships vanished into jump points, the fabric of space-time bending to humanity's will. The technology allowing such precision, such coordination, would have been impossible before the Kryvax attack. Necessity had accelerated human innovation beyond what might have taken centuries in peacetime. On Krivia Prime, the Supreme Nexus was discussing the ongoing human negotiations when the first alarm sounded. Orbital sensors detected massive energy spikes as jump points formed around the planet. The Kryvax defense minister rushed into the chamber. Supreme Nexus, we are under attack. Multiple vessels. He stopped, checking his datapad again, mandibles clicking in confusion. Thousands of vessels. No, tens of thousands. The Supreme Nexus rose from its ceremonial platform. Impossible. The humans have no such fleet. Our intelligence. Supreme Nexus, the minister interrupted, unprecedented in Kryvax hierarchy. Our sensors now report over 500,000 vessels emerging from jump points. They have surrounded the entire system. For the first time in recorded Kryvax history, the Supreme Nexus experienced fear. In orbit around Krivia Prime, the human armada appeared like stars suddenly blinking into existence. The precision of their arrival was perfect. 700 battle groups emerging simultaneously in a spherical formation that completely enclosed the Kryvax homeworld and its defense fleet. All ships maintain position. Sato ordered. Communications, open a channel to the Kryvax leadership. On the Kryvax command center view screen, Admiral Sato's image appeared. Behind him stood Alina Chen, one of the few Elysium survivors. This is Admiral Hiroshi Sato of the Terran Defense Force. Kryvax leadership, you are surrounded by 700,000 warships, each armed with weapons specifically designed to penetrate your defenses. Your fleet is outnumbered nearly 100 to 1. The Supreme Nexus itself responded, its massive form dwarfing the lesser Kryvax around it. What is the meaning of this? We are in peace negotiations with your species. Alina Chen stepped forward. I am Alina Chen, survivor of Elysium Prime. Your accidental incident killed 30 million humans, including my husband and everyone I ever knew. There are 126 other survivors. We have built a ship for every soul you murdered. The Supreme Nexus chittered rapidly to its advisors before responding. We will mobilize our full military might if you do not withdraw. The Collective has dominated this sector for 10,000 years. You cannot hope to. Your full military might is already mobilized, Sato interrupted. 8,000 ships against our 700,000. Conventional wisdom would suggest we now destroy your homeworld as you destroyed ours. An eye for an eye. The tension on the Kryvax command center was palpable, even through the view screen. However, Sato continued, humanity has not come to commit genocide. We are not you. He nodded to Alina. These are our terms, she said. 1. The Kryvax Collective will surrender its entire military fleet to human control. 2. The Collective will pay reparations for Elysium Prime, to be determined by an interspecies tribunal. 3. Kryvax territory will be reduced to your homeworld, and 2 colony systems. 4. You will submit to regular inspections to ensure you develop no further military capability. This is outrageous. The Supreme Nexus roared. We will never. You have 1 hour to begin compliance, Sato said calmly. After that, we will destroy one orbiting installation every 10 minutes until you surrender. We will not target civilian populations unless you force our hand. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the Kryvax leadership in stunned silence. Aboard the Remembrance, Alina looked at Admiral Sato. Will they comply? They have no choice, he replied. But they don't know that yet. They need time to understand their situation. Exactly 57 minutes later, the Kryvax transmitted their surrender. The aftermath of what became known as the Krivia Confrontation transformed the galactic political landscape. Humanity, previously considered a minor species confined to a small sector, emerged as the predominant power in the quadrant. The 700,000 ships of the armada were not disassembled but instead became the foundation of a peacekeeping force that patrolled former Kryvax territory. Elysium Prime was not forgotten. A memorial station was constructed in orbit around the now lifeless world, where people could come to pay respects. The station contained a genetic bank of all Elysium's native flora and plans for eventual reterraforming. Alina Chen became the first human ambassador to the reformed Kryvax government. Some questioned this appointment, believing her too personally affected by the massacre to be objective. But Alina understood something fundamental about peace. I will never forgive what they did, she told Admiral Sato before departing for her new post. But I cannot allow hatred to consume what remains of my life. If we're to build something lasting from this tragedy, it must begin with understanding. The Kryvax, for their part, underwent a societal transformation. The Supreme Nexus was dissolved, replaced by a more representative council. Young Kryvax were taught about the Elysium massacre as a cautionary tale of arrogance and its consequences. 5 years after the confrontation, a small ceremony took place on the memorial station. Admiral Sato, now nearing retirement, stood with Alina beside a newly planted garden of trees, descendants of those that once grew on Elysium. Was it enough? Alina asked quietly. All of it. The fleet, the confrontation, the new order we've established. Sato considered the question carefully. Nothing could ever be enough to balance what was lost, he finally said. But perhaps it was enough to ensure it never happens again. Not to us, not to anyone. They stood in silence, watching as the station rotated, bringing the burned world of Elysium into view through the observation window. We remember, Alina whispered. We remember, Sato echoed. Throughout human space, 700,000 ships maintained their vigilant patrol, a fleet built from grief, but now preserving a hard-won peace. Humanity had learned a harsh lesson. In a universe of predators, one must have claws. But they had also learned a greater truth, that strength exercised with restraint was the true measure of a species' worth. The stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the struggles of the beings who lived among them. But in one small corner of the galaxy, those beings had found a way forward from darkness into light. And they remembered.